And now we have news this morning that ISIS is claiming responsibility for what happened in Garland, Texas. So let's bring in Dr. Kanta Ahmed. She is the author of In the Land of Invisible Women. And with this news, this plays on the fear that ISIS is going to launch attacks here at home, and even if they don't plan them, they're going to inspire them. So what is the meaning of this?
I think that the events at Palmela Geller's gathering recently do expose a real dichotomy in our conversation. We are very privileged as Americans because we enjoy free speech in a way that really doesn't exist in other places and is defended very vigorously. I've lived in places where free speech doesn't exist, including Saudi Arabia. But the concept of any action on speech that's deemed blasphemous, as, for instance, in Charlie Hebdo in Paris or in Copenhagen, is a fictional crime. It is not an Islamic crime. It is a crime that is prosecuted by Islamists. Those actors that attempted to have a massacre in Texas and were foiled by a brave policeman are operating on a fictional basis.
But that plays into the phobia, right? The reason it's such a big headline that ISIS is claiming this because now to the American mind, they are saying, see, this is what happens. You know, every time you do something Muslims don't like, they'll attack you. They answer in violence. And them claiming responsibility feeds the phobia. So what is the counterattack?
Well, I think your use of the word phobia is a good one. And perhaps phobia means an irrational fear. I think there is a rational fear for authorities in the United States that we do have a problem with domestic radicalization. I've testified to Capitol Hill about domestic radicalization. There is an issue with radicalization in U.S. prisons. So to me, that is a rational fear. Where I have a real distress in the event that Geller hosted is that I don't believe her intentions are to advance understanding or expand discourse. While she says she recognizes that there are peaceful Muslims, she also labels us all with some pretty heinous language, in her own words.
She tries to separate
savages.
She tries to separate that they're savages and then they're Muslims. She says she keeps them separate, but
she doesn't.
It does seem to the uninitiated that Islam gets a protection of its own faith that other faiths don't get. If you want to create an effigy of Jesus, go ahead, you're going to be able to do it. People won't like it, but that's how it is. But there's an understanding that no one's allowed to do any picture of Muhammad. The media won't do it, nobody will do it, and it inspires a kind of double standard feeling that makes people upset.
So that may be a sentiment. In the United States, that's not a reality. We can have contests for these kinds of cartoons as much as somebody can print a copy of Mein Kampf and promote it. That is what the U.S. is about. If you actually
but then you have people try and come and shoot you and kill you if you do it.
If you actually look at Islamic history, there have been Islamic satirists for centuries operating between the 8th and 13th century who ridiculed Islam and aspects of Islam in far greater terms than anything we've seen here. And one of her assertions is that Muslims have no sense of humor. She just needs to look at some 8th to 13th century history. That's well reported.
And she has to do something that is emotionally difficult, but as you always say, intellectually honest, which is you have to separate those who have perverted the faith and now say that if you paint a picture of Muhammad, I'll kill you, from true followers of Islam,
yes,
real Muslims.
Who would defend her right to have freedom of speech, but also she's not the only guilty party. We are in a climate where our own administration does not want to engage in this conversation. So when you say that there is an irrational fear, we've had a national denial of a problem called Islamism, which affects us internationally and definitely attempts to constrict freedom of speech through UN resolutions. We also have had a president who's unwilling to name Islamism for what it is. So we lack official discourse. The public discourse is struggling, and so what's happening is polarization is increasing. We have this gift of free speech in order to share complicated ideas, but in events like Geller's, I don't believe it's used to the best possible opportunity.
At the end of the day, when people are angry or they're afraid, subtlety is not always easy to give purchase. But Dr. Kanta Ahmed, thank you for expanding our understanding, as always.
My pleasure, Chris.